Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting for June 24th, 2019. We're going to begin tonight with a proclamation. JJ, are you? Okay, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'm going to call it to order, and we'll go ahead and begin with an invocation by Barry Smith, followed by our pledge of allegiance. Thanks, Barry.
All right, will y'all bow your heads with me? Loving Father, we come to you tonight and ask for your blessings on the people gathered here and for the work that we're going to undertake tonight. We pray for you to guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. We ask for your wisdom and discernment as we address the matters at hand and ask that you would show us how to conduct our work with joyful and grateful hearts. We are so thankful for the many blessings that you've given to the city of Homewood and pray that we can use those blessings to bless others. Pray this in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I tell you what, before we do roll call, Mayor is here. Mayor, if you want to handle a proclamation for the Alzheimer's Association. It was, but we said a prayer for you and everything.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies. Now, which of you says you tell me your name.
Kimberly.
Kimberly
Yes.
and
I'm Jessica.
hey, Jessica.
Nice
All
to
right, so
meet
we have
you.
Kimberly and Jessica with us tonight. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna why don't you come on over here and stand with us? So we have a proclamation for Alzheimer and Brain Awareness Month, and it's way too early in the proclamation to not pronounce Alzheimer's correctly. It's listed about 18 times, I think. So we have, whereas Alzheimer's disease is a progressive degenerative disease of the brain, causing deterioration in memory and thinking, as well as judgment and reasoning ability. It also affects behavior, emotions, and the ability to perform self-care. And whereas, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death for older adults and the 3rd leading cause of death in Alabama. And whereas of the approximately 5.8 million people in the United States living with Alzheimer's, 92,000 of those reside in the state of Alabama, while a staggering total of 16.1 million Americans care for an individual with Alzheimer's or other dementia. And whereas every 65 seconds, someone in the United States develops Alzheimer's disease, which is 100% fatal and is the only cause of death that cannot be prevented, cured, or slowed. And whereas Alzheimer's disease and other dementias will cost the nation $290 billion in 2019, these costs are expected to rise to $1.1 trillion by 2050. And whereas the Alzheimer's Association is the largest not-for-profit founder of research in the world and the 3rd largest funder for Alzheimer's research behind the United States and Chinese governments. Whereas the Alzheimer's Association's mission is to eliminate Alzheimer's disease through the advancement of research, the purpose of the Alabama chapter of the Alzheimer's Association is to empower and support individuals, families, caregivers, and communities affected by this disease in the state of Alabama. And whereas the mayor and city council recognize individuals, families, friends, and caregivers dealing with the devastating effects of Alzheimer's disease, the researchers who are seeking a cause or causes in cure, and the educational programs and support services provided by the Alzheimer's Association. So now, therefore, I, Scott McBrayer, Mayor of the City of Homewood, Alabama, hereby proclaim June 2019 as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. And ladies, thank y'all for all the work that you're providing and doing for, obviously, the countless families in the state of Alabama and certainly in the city of Homewood, all you're doing to help with that. So thank y'all very much. Yeah, he can come up here and get a good picture. Let's move out here where we can. Now, if we keep going, we're gonna need it. Anything on me to say?
No, well, I will say one thing. We have, our largest event of the year is called the Walk to End Alzheimer's.
Yeah, go step up to the microphone.
So our largest event of the year is called Walk to End Alzheimer's, Heart of Alabama. It'll be Sunday, September 29th at Sauce Furnaces. You can follow us on social media at EndAls, BHAM-AL. I'm the walk chair for the third year in a row, and my mom has early onset, which is kind of what brought me into this fight, and I live in the city of Homewood as well. So I encourage you all to come out to the walk. If anyone is interested in saying a few words before we do our walk, we do a short 2-mile walk, it's not a run, around the city, and it's just a great day for family and for us to just recognize our caregivers and people with Alzheimer's, and it starts at 1 o'clock, we walk at 3, and we invite you all to come, and you can get more information at alz.org/al or find us on social media. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor. All right, with that, we'll begin with tonight's meeting and roll call. Melody?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney? Here. Mr. Thames? Here. Mr. Higginbotham? Here. Mr. Wolverton?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Wyatt?
Here.
Mrs. Andress?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here.
And Mr. Limbaugh is absent. So you have a quorum.
Thank you, Melody. All right, we'll begin with approval of the minutes from, or dispense with the reading of the minutes from June 10th, 2019.
I move to dispense with the reading and approve the minutes as presented.
All right, motion by Mrs. Smith. Second by Mr. Gwaltney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We're going to have one, as I understand, just one amendment to tonight's agenda. We're going to be adding to committee referral 370619, which is a request for consideration to change building inspection officer position that was budgeted in fiscal year 2018-19 to plumbing, mechanical, and gas inspections officer, coming to us from Wyatt Pugh and BEZ, and we're going to have this referred to finance. And with that, I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended. By Mr. McCluskey.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we have an amended agenda. Have lots to talk about board vacancies and appointments. Kind of opened the box on that. First thing, we'll talk about Ward 5 Municipal Housing Code Abatement Board. That position has expired, and as I understand, Melody, we need to reopen that.
Yes, sir. Y'all had it open back in the fall of 2018, but we still have a vacancy, and Mr. P said he would like to get that vacancy. He'd like for us to re-announce it because he needs to get that board fully staffed.
Okay, so we'll certainly reopen it. I guess the only question is how long we want to keep it reopened. I mean, I would say for another 90 days.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't aware that it was open. I mean, that we didn't have anyone in that spot, so yeah, please, it'd be great.
Yeah, so let's give it 90 days, see if we can, and maybe Jennifer and I will talk about that.
So you want to pick a council meeting day in like 3 months, and that's when it closes, or let's see. 1, 2.
And I assume we don't want to keep it open-ended. I mean, I think we want to.
That's what I'm saying, like what
Yeah.
day, like a council meeting day in September that you want to have it closed at 4:30?
Just the second, how about the second council meeting in September? We'll,
Should be September 23rd. Is
okay.
that what you said, Mr. Pickett?
Yeah.
Okay.
Council
September
Ray.
23rd.
Yes, Mr. Gwaltney?
Ms. Salter, is the Ward 4 position not also vacant at the moment, or is
Let's
it?
see, of the let's see. We have as Ward 4 Francis Allison, is that not correct?
I wasn't aware she was in the meetings at all.
Okay. We have her, and I'll give you her contact, we have her term expire in October of 2021. Is that Ward 4?
I believe so, yes.
Ward 4.
I'll follow up. I just thought there were only 3 people making the meetings, so.
The rest of them, we show somebody in through 2021. So I'll
Okay.
send you the link.
Thank you for clarifying.
All right, thank you for that. Meanwhile, we do have a couple of applicants for the Ward 4 Library Board, which closed today. And so we have 2 applicants and I guess a need for interviews. I don't know how you guys want to handle that.
Yeah, I told Melody I'm leaving town Thursday, and I really will be gone for the next 2 weeks. So if Alex needs to go ahead and do that in my absence, I'm happy for him to do that, unless they can both interview in the very short window of time that I will still be here.
Do you want to set a date for it, or do you want to make the next council meeting? Or what is your pleasure, sir?
I was afraid July 4th may be hard to get people in.
I
but,
know, that's kind of what I thought that
I haven't called the applicants yet to see if they're going to be in, but I just figure it's going to probably be a little difficult with July 4th.
Next week is probably not. I would hate to do it on the week of the 4th. I don't think that's even worth trying. Are you back on the week of the 8th?
I'm gone again.
Okay. I'll get with Melody and see if I can work out a date. How about that?
Okay.
For the week of the 8th, sometime the week of the 8th.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I will leave,
And we'll circulate that time around.
sounds good. All right, we also have 2 at-large positions for the Educational Building Authority. As I understand, we need to reopen those 2.
Yes, sir.
Melody?
It closed on 6/10 of 19, but we didn't have any applicants.
What ward is that?
These
Or
are
those
at-large.
Yes, they're at large.
So
2
both-
vacancies of the Educational Building Authority.
Okay.
They only convene if they have something to, we're just trying to get every board that's vacant in case you need to call.
Okay. So there's really nothing to do unless there's a project for them?
That's correct. And we meet very sporadically.
Okay. Well, why don't we reopen it, and why don't we keep that one open for 6 months? See?
You're killing me with the 6 months.
It's a lot. Listen, why don't you do the same as 90 days? Why don't you do the same 90 days as
I
before?
gotta look at my calendar.
All right, we'll do 90 days.
So you're
Why
gonna do
don't we do the same date?
September 23rd?
But I well,
years.
I got a feeling this one is going to be hard to fill.
Next time you
so.
chair, I'm gonna make sure I know what 30, 60, and 90 days are for council meeting.
That's how we lawyers work, okay?
Yes,
Mike can tell you that.
I get it now. So you are reopening until 9/20?
That's how we feel.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we feel. That's right. Totally different.
So like till 9/23 like you did the other one? Okay.
Okay, next, Board of Adjustments and Appeals. We have numerous at-large positions, and this is sort of the same thing. This is for appeals of our department decisions about Board of Adjustment and Appeal matters, construction matters. And these, as I understand, these members have to have construction experience?
There are qualifications, professional qualifications for those members, yes, sir.
Is this open right now, or is it closed?
It closed, I have down that it closed July 11th of 2018. That's the last on the board that, I don't know if y'all, that's the last time I showed that y'all, that it closed and nobody applied, so. Yeah, because you have to, like you said, have to have specific experience.
Okay, well, I don't know what the will of the council
Like
is.
Mr. P said, this one
but-
would be convened if somebody wanted to challenge a position that they made, it'd be easy, but we're letting y'all know that everybody's term is expired on it, so if they needed it for whatever reason.
Okay. I don't know if we need any action on that one. There doesn't seem to be any need for it. Or we can carry it over, we can do another, we can put it in our 90 days and we can revisit it then. I mean, it's sort of an inactive body that's really not doing anything until it's called upon. But the problem is there.
I just wanted to make sure if y'all call upon it, y'all knew that we didn't have
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say, you don't really want to have it and not, need it and not have it.
Well, we got 7 positions to put in there. So, all right, we'll put that on our 90-day window as well. And
Okay.
we're going to at least have a discussion about it. We're going to figure out, so we're going to have unless we get 7 people in within 90 days.
Reach out to your construction friends.
Okay, and seriously, be thinking of some construction folks who perhaps can help us with this board. All right, a couple more. Cable Commission Ward 3 needs to be opened. That is expired, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can we open that until July 8th? Okay, yeah,
Okay.
we can do 2 weeks.
Okay, any objection to that? All right. All right, done. And lastly, Historic Preservation Society, we have an at-large position. This is actually one that's to be appointed by the mayor, and we just need to reopen this so the mayor can make that appointment.
Yeah, the person that was sitting in that spot resigned last week. So we just need to open it up so that we can get some applicants so that the mayor can appoint somebody.
Okay. You okay with that?
So what, I didn't hear.
July 8th. Do
July
July
8th?
8th as
Okay.
well. Yeah,
Sorry, I got it.
thank you.
And Mr. Wright,
Is that enough time, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I have an appointment for the Hydra.
Oh, you do have one?
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Scott Dean.
But it doesn't close yet.
Oh, I thought it had just been open indefinitely.
I show it closing on July 8th.
Oh, okay.
He
sorry.
did apply, but,
And I won't be here on July 8th, so if someone could put that in for me.
the email said Ward 2, but
I thought it was, I thought there were 3 at large. I didn't.
well,
okay.
there are 3, there are
13 members.
3 at large, and there's a Ward,
Now,
and there's a Ward 2.
Okay, I'll let you handle it then, Andrew.
Well, it sounds like
now,
it's-
Counselor, we've been
I
waiting
know.
for weeks to find a word.
I'm
to-
sorry.
Trying to poach them right out from under.
Misunderstood.
Don't steal them from our
Nice try, Ms. Andrews. All right, so that one hasn't expired, so we'll have some.
I
we'll-
show
we'll
that
keep
they left it
open.
open until July 8th, so I don't guess we need to wait till after then to make sure nobody else.
All right, I think that's it for board vacancies and appointments. We'll get into our agenda and start with consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve our one item on consent agenda
So moved. Second.
by Mrs. Smith and second by Mrs. Andrus. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. First item on our old business agenda is 06-0219, which is a public hearing tonight for consideration of an ordinance limiting the time frame of hotel stays within the city limits of Homewood. This is a public hearing, so we're going to go ahead and open this public hearing tonight. And we'll welcome members of the public to speak about this item tonight. Please come forward and make sure you sign your name in with Melody, anyone who wishes to speak on this item. All right, give us your name and address, and we'll go proceed.
Sure. Good evening, Ravi Patel, 616 Bristol Lane, Homewood, Alabama, 35226. Basically, the council has heard my objections or reasons why I disagree with this ordinance on multiple different committee meetings and occasions. I just wanted to make a formal objection here tonight, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Anyone else wish to speak in favor or against this item? Seeing no one, go ahead and close tonight's public hearing. And I'll turn it over to any comments or statements or questions from council members. All right, I guess we'll begin with the first reading.
Yes, sir.
Kendrick?
Excuse me. This ordinance to amend the provisions of Article 2 entitled Definitions to provide for a new definition for transient of Appendix A entitled the zoning ordinance of the City of Homewood. Whereas, Section 1, that Article 2 entitled definitions shall be amended to read as follows. Provide for a definition for transients. Transient is a person, firm, or business entity that rents or is furnished any room or rooms, lodging or accommodations in a hotel or motel for a period of less than 180 continuous days in the city. Section 2 of all other provisions of the zoning ordinance remaining full force and effect, and Section 4 of the ordinance will become effective immediately upon its adoption by the city council.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion for unanimous consent. By Mr. McCluskey. Second by Mr. Thames. And roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham? Mr. Wolverton? Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes. Now we'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
By Mr. McCluskey. Second by Mr. Wyatt. And roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
No.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes. So I think that
Passes 9 to
ordinance.
1.
What ordinance is that?
2749.
2749 passes 9 to 1. All right, next item, 130619, which is a public hearing that was continued from June 10th for the purpose of determining whether any building, structure, or other improvements situated on 553 Edgecrest Drive is unsafe to the extent it creates a public nuisance and should be demolished. And we are continuing with our public hearing, and Mr. Wyatt Pugh can update us where we are today.
Yes, sir. Since the last council meeting, I met with Ms. Balin at her residence, and we went through some of the items that would be required to abate the safety nuisance. And that's sort of what I have to focus on, not looking at the way anything necessarily looks, other than just, is it safe or is it unsafe? One of the main things we went over was the handrails and the guardrails on the steps. We also talked about a landing at the bottom of the steps. I believe that's in progress. As far as the rest of the things, the only other really unsafe condition I saw was the condition of the yard. This is what it looks like today. So Ms. Balin is here if you'd like to ask her any questions, or if you'd like to ask me any questions, I'll be happy to.
Mr. Wolverton?
So it looks like from the picture, Wyatt, that there's only slats on one side of the stairs there? Is that
Yes,
right?
sir. That was in progress today. These pictures are from today.
Okay. And then were you able to inspect the inside? I know there was a question about where the water runoff was going and whether or not that was contributing to kind of the disintegration of the structure or not?
Absolutely. Surprisingly, it was very dry. It's not the way I would have designed it in a perfect world, but it's working. I didn't see any unsafe conditions such as mold or water spots or water damage or any other such thing.
Ms. Smith?
With all of the items in the yard, that still seems to be an issue. Is there a plan to rectify that, and if so, in what sort of time frame? Because we've already allowed 2 weeks.
That is actually one of the things I spoke about with Ms. Balin and impressed upon her, that a time frame was going to be of the utmost importance in this situation, a time frame from now till finish. And I even spoke with her today, and she said she would come prepared to give you that.
Yes, Walt.
Going back to the picture, what is that other structure next to the walkway? I'm trying to figure out, what is that platform?
Good question. Yeah, I thought that was odd too. It's a piece of an old deck that's, I think they left there to serve as sort of a scaffolding. and with the plans of tearing it down. At least that's what Ms. Balin. But,
Okay,
I think they left
We need to
it.
address that.
They left it there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pugh, did they pull a permit?
Yes, sir. We did get that straightened out.
Mr. Pugh, question. So,
Yes, sir.
Recommendation on whether we still have a safety hazard here.
Going strictly on the safety concern, I can't in good conscience recommend that it's not safe.
Any further questions from Mr. Pugh? All right, certainly we'll let the homeowner speak as well as anyone else, so we'll continue with this. All right. Thank you. Ma'am, and your name again?
Angela Balon,
Okay.
553 Edgecrest Drive.
Okay. Well, I think you've heard what we've said, there's still things that
Yes, we
the
have
unsafe
been-
conditions still exist. And so
My
what
husband
are your comments about that?
My husband was working on the handrails this afternoon and is still working on that as we speak, which is why I had sent him the pictures of what we were working on this afternoon. The rain kind of got in the way.
Well, we've had 2 weeks to do it. I mean, so what are your plans with regard to the safety hazards, which the ones I'm looking at, and Mr. Pugh can correct me if I'm wrong, are certainly the rails, which are certainly not up to code, and platform, which is possibly a question. I haven't heard that yet.
Yes,
but
that's going to be completely torn down.
Okay, and what are your timing plans on the rail, the
The-
platform, and the other items that are
Okay,
still
those
sitting
are
in the yard?
we're taking them by truckloads out and, to the dump. And it's just, at this point, simply a matter of getting enough trucks and.
So is that going to be tomorrow? Is that going to be the next day?
It would be another, if possible, week
Another week? Okay.
to finish the rest of that. He's working on the handrails and we'll have the platform can be.
Okay. All right, anything else?
We've got the screen to put into the windows. It is an outdoor porch. There are no type of living arrangements or anything like that inside. He inspected it. It's dry inside. There are no issues with mold or any type of runoff. And the siding will be done either in stone or siding.
Is the siding presenting any safety issues? What?
No, sir. It's not actually siding. It's just, it's a sheathing that's up there now that they've put paint on to protect it from the weather. It's not unsafe.
Okay.
It's not finished, but it's not unsafe.
All right, thank you. Okay, anything further? Okay. Any questions for the homeowner, Mr. Wolverton?
Wyatt, how long is a building permit good for?
Permits are good for 6 months when a project goes inactive. If work is progressing even at a fairly slow pace, we tend to not void them out.
And then, I guess I was under the understanding that you guys were meeting after last council meeting, and everything that you said needed to be done was going to be done. It sounds like maybe the railing isn't finished. I'm not sure why it would take 2 weeks to take things to the dump or
Yes, sir.
whatever else is there.
And that's a fair point. You're exactly right. The railing is not finished, which I asked them to do. Since it was in progress today, I was sort of giving them the benefit of that progress, but no, you're absolutely right about that. It's not finished.
Mr. Wyatt?
Mr. Pugh, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. as it currently sits, it is not safe because it doesn't have the railings, it's got the platform, and it's got these items in the yard. Is that correct?
You're correct.
Is there anything else that they need to do?
A landing at the bottom of those steps.
Okay.
Just sort of falls off into the yard.
Right there. Where drive is written.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes, sir, Mr. Walton.
Mr. Pugh, in your estimation, how long should it take to complete the items that present the public nuisance?
Really, from my perspective of safety only, the list could have easily been done by now. I mean, a week would be sufficient time to put up some hand railing and a landing and take down that scaffolding or the old piece of the deck, and essentially that's it. Oh, and clean up the yard. There were quite a few safety hazards there, and I see they straightened up the yard.
All right, thank you all. Anyone else who wishes to speak in favor or against this item? Just give it, did you sign in with Melody?
Yeah.
Okay,
I did.
and give us your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Mike Wyndham. I live at 545 Edgecrest Drive. I sent JJ a couple of pictures. Friday afternoon at 4:48, not one single thing, and I'll pass this around, not one single thing had been done after, this past Friday right here. Now, the yard wasn't clean. Not one thing. The reason, probably a little bit late, I was going to try to get a picture because of the hammering that was going on today. The rain has not been here for 2 weeks. Mr. Pugh, I think I saw you in front of the door afterwards. He couldn't even get into the backyard, and then when he did, not one thing has been done. We're not talking about 2 more weeks, 1 more week. We're talking about this has gone on for 9 years. This thing has been built. I'm not even sure this woman still lives in the house with him. So let's start there. And let me show you one other picture just so, like I said, I sent, we're not hauling this off in trucks, waiting on the city of Homewood. I sent JJ a picture of it. We're waiting on the city of Homewood to pick up the trash that's already out there. So we're not, there's not been a truck take it off. I've seen the guy that has been helping them bring it out to the street. Every bit of it's been brought out to the street. The city didn't pick it up Monday. It's still out there. And whatever trucks they're waiting on have yet to show up. There's no trucks. Every bit of this is a joke. He's up there doing it right now, putting up, and you can hear the pneumatic nailer going off where he's putting up his thing right now. Not 2 weeks ago, but today. And it's, like I say, the yard Friday has not got one piece of paper moved from when it was originally said that we carried on this for 2 weeks and then 2 weeks more. Do something about this. This is, 3 or 4 neighbors were coming and they couldn't get to this meeting. But I'm telling you, this has turned into a joke in the neighborhood. And it's turned into a joke for West Homewood. And it's, I mean, especially when you see it behind, you can see the entire joke coming down Oxmoor. Their yard is very prevalent, being the second one in the house, second house on the street. We don't need to continue it. We've continued it for 9 years. If this happened in any neighborhood for 9 years, something would have stopped. He said it's not safe. It's not safe today. It's not safe during the rain. It's not safe 2 weeks ago. It's not been safe for 9 years. I think it's time to do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyndham.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, Mr. Thames.
I'm obliged to agree with the resident that just spoke. I don't see any reason why we can't declare this a public nuisance and immediately remove the debris from the yard. There's nothing that says we have to tear the structure down, but we could remove the debris from the yard and lien the homeowner for the cost of it. I don't see any reason why the council shouldn't do that at this
All right.
point.
Can I,
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
It's a question for Mr. Pugh. In terms, is this like the condemnation processes that we've done before where there's a 30-day period in which we have to give the homeowner 30 days to respond. Is that the same here?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. If you were to pronounce it a public nuisance tonight and pass that resolution, there would be an automatic 30-day window that would kick in.
So, and then if for whatever reason a miracle occurred and everything was rectified in 30 days, they could come back and that would be that?
Certainly.
Thank you. Let me see if there's anything else from the public hearing other than, yeah. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We're still going to talk about it. And further comments from the council. Mr. Hickenbottom?
I just had a question for Mr. Pugh, because I just wanted to clarify one point to make sure I understand it correctly. So if we move forward with the action tonight, one of the things that will happen, the city will make to happen, and then put a lien against the property for the property owner to pay for it, would be the removal of the debris in the yard. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Let me make sure I understand. If you pronounce
After
it
the 30 days.
Okay, yes, sir.
I'm just
Yes.
trying to clarify to make sure we're not just talking about the demolition of a structure. We're talking about the removal of the stuff that's in the yard as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's part of, that is part of the unsafe condition.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right, any further comments?
I would move to declare it a nuisance.
We have a motion by Mrs. Smith to declare it a public nuisance, second by Mr. Wyatt. Any further comment, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so motion for public nuisance carries 10-0. Next item.
That's resolution.
Oh, that's resolution, I'm sorry.
1993.
Resolution 1993, thank you. All right, next item, 160619, which is we're just going to set a public hearing for July 8th, 2019 to consider declaring property located at 1117 Hardwick Lane a public nuisance. Again, that will come up for public hearing on July 8th. Next item, 160115, which is update on past, present, and future sidewalks from Greg Cobb in the Building Engineering and Zoning Department. And on this one, 160115, we have a report from P&D.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wright. The committee met, and after hearing from Doug Peterson and with Gonzalez Strength, voted 4-0 to recommend approval for the mayor to sign the contract with Gonzalez Strength. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Jones.
All right, this is approval of engineering contract, I believe.
Correct, and it deals with the crosswalk and the Rumson project combined.
CE&I.
Because I know there's still a construction item that's still in finance, but this is going to be dealing with engineering. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, this is just authorizing the engineering contract.
Gotcha. All right, so we have a favorable motion from P&D. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Andrus. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes 10-0, and that is 1994. All right, 080519, request for consideration to amend open records policy from Liz Ellaby and Jennifer Andrus. And on this, we also have a report, this one from Special Issues.
Yes, this was an item that's been on the special issues agenda for a couple of weeks, and Jennifer and I met with staff members and Mr. Kendrick and worked out some additional things that we could do on our open records and open meetings responsibilities, and I think we were already doing a lot, but we went ahead and added some additional things that we think could make it even stronger with the help of Mr. Wallace and some others. And we voted to approve those recommended changes, and that came out of committee 4-0 with Mr. Gwaltney making the motion and seconding a second from Ms. Andrus.
All right, any further discussion on that? I understand this is not a resolution item, but we'll still entertain, well, it came out of special, I'll still entertain a second for approval of the statement coming out of special issues.
We'll second it.
Second by Ms. Andrus. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that statement from special issues is approved 10-0. Next item, 240519, which is a request to review and amend the West Homewood District zoning ordinance coming to us from Andrew Wolverton, and we also have a report tonight from P&D on this item.
Yes, sir. The committee met and voted 4-0 to refer this item to the Planning Commission pending review by staff and Mr. Kendrick, the city attorney. Motion was made by Councilor Jones and seconded by Councilor Andrus.
Okay, so this is coming out of P&D to refer a new West Homewood District zoning ordinance to Planning Commission, and I know that's been subject of a lot of hard work by Ward 2 members. And Mike, won't you update us where we are and thoughts on where we're going on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very short window to prepare something for last week, and then in the subsequent week in between committee and tonight, I did get further input from residents and some what I thought were good observations. They would be things that I would think we should include in what we send to the Planning Commission. I included them in an email out to council today. Just so what I would suggest, and Andrew, chime in if this is not copacetic with you, is that in addition to the marked up item, we tell the Planning Commission that we want the proposals, because this was always the intent, but the language does not say this, so that's the problem. We want the proposals to go to the Planning Commission before they come to council, but that they ultimately would come to council. The way it reads now, it just says it comes straight to council, which was not the intent, but that is how it reads currently. And that if there were things that would typically go to BZA and other zonings, that those would go to BZA. So the intent here is really to make this more like another zoning in terms of what the approval process is, with us being the final approval for the plans and BZA handling any variances. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
A little bit.
A little bit, okay.
No, I'm not being, I'll say that because it may be me that's, so are we sending, we don't have all this fine-tuned into anything we're going to, I mean, we do have a document and to send to Planning Commission, but it sounds like it is still a work in progress.
It is still a work that probably could benefit from some additional changes, yes, sir.
Okay.
The problem being, of course, that we're under 120-day. Technically, we are not under a 120-day deadline, but realistically, we've got to get this done in the next 120 days.
All right, so let me just ask one question on that, and I'll let Mr. Wolverton speak. So my question is, do we want to, here in council or in committee or wherever, chew on that any longer, or do we want to get it up to Planning Commission for it to chew on what we're going to send to them, which is, and I'm not being critical, this has been a very difficult work in progress and with a timetable, or do we want to send to them sort of a work in progress document? Mr. Wolf.
Can I ask a clarifying question to a member of the Planning Commission? Any word on whether you guys plan to meet in July as scheduled, or?
To my knowledge, we are. I haven't heard any different. If we...
Just because it's the week of the 4th, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, we have to meet. I mean, it may not be on that first Tuesday, but to my knowledge, we are. I haven't been informed of anything different. Let me check our calendar.
Okay. I guess kind of a follow-up side question to that would be, is there anything against, basically having a working document that's within, or that's sitting in front of the Planning Commission while we continue to process it on the council side of things? I know that sounds a little...
I think I think we discussed this a couple of weeks ago. I think the quickest, smartest route, given the time constraints we're under, would be to recommend to the Planning Commission some high-level, very few high-level tweaks, because we all know there's more things that would like to be changed. I did have a discussion with Lindsay Polk of the RPC this afternoon. Didn't have a chance to tell you guys before we met that placemakers will be here at the end of this week discussing the sign and downtown zoning, and I think you should. They're willing to help us with this. All that being said, I think the cleanest you can send the Planning Commission right now, the better chance of having something back in a timely fashion. I would not overwhelm them, and I think Mr. Kendrick would agree. You can't just delete whole sections out of zoning and because typically it affects other sections. And I just don't want it to get bogged down.
If I might add, to your point about being engaged in the process, what I did with the landscape ordinance was you can go to the zoning sub-book committee meeting, or whatever, however it's phrased, and participate in the discussion and have some impact on the changes, because those are open meetings and anybody can attend.
Are you referring to going to the planning commission meeting?
Well, once the planning commission gets it, they'll recommend it to the sub-book committee that reviews zoning changes.
When is that? Do you know?
I'm not sure. But just to answer your question, you can have input and be a part of the work in progress that way.
I feel like Mike and I put together a kind of a bullet point of some of the most important things that we perceive that need to be changed.
The planning and zoning subcommittee meets on tends to be, what does that look like, the third Tuesdays of the month?
And also, your attendance would be good, because what that'll do is that'll help you provide definition and stuff. Like, we changed this because of this. So at least they have some context to work from. So if they don't, they're liable to go off in a different direction.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Mr.
Kabod.
If the council, I mean, obviously it's the council's pleasure as to what they want to do. If the council wants to move ahead with the document we have now, I'm happy to go to the subcommittee, the zoning book subcommittee meetings and talk about these other bullet points and let them handle that as they move it out. It was just, I did want to fine tune the process, and some of the things were difficult to write into the book. Like, for example, the fact that the maps don't agree. That's a hard thing to write into to articulate. They need to be made to agree. That needs to happen, but that was not something I could make to happen. And
it's not specifically.
But I can certainly talk with them about that. I know that I think Greg's still here, but Mr. Pugh's gone. I know the staff knows that they don't agree because we've had a conversation with them. So if we want to move the document forward we got now, and then have either Andrew or I both go to the meeting and talk about some of these other points, I'm happy to do it that way. Whatever the pleasure of the council is, I just, we're just under the gun a little bit, and so I just want to do whatever is expeditious and acceptable to my colleagues.
So just to follow up on the subcommittee, to clarify, so if we vote to move it forward tonight, Planning Commission has a meeting before the subcommittee would meet?
Yes, it'll be put on the agenda for the Planning Commission, and they'll refer it to the subcommittee from that first Tuesday meeting.
So basically, it's not going to really be discussed at the Planning Commission meeting initially?
No. It could be, but most likely not.
So would it be, since we are going to have committee meetings before then, would we be able to fine-tune?
Well, guys, I think what I would say is anything we're sending from here is strictly a recommendation.
Sure.
And you don't have to be, in my opinion, and somebody correct me, this doesn't have to be an official, anything official. You can communicate throughout the process, because whatever they end up passing is going to come here anyways. So I would not get bogged down in minutia and details, just, again, some high-level tweaks to get us through.
Sounds like the Planning Commission subcommittee gives us a good vehicle. Once we get the vehicle up there, it gives us a good forum for you and Mike to, and anyone else, of course, and all of us to, I mean, it sounds like that's what it's designed for, and that is further along in the process than probably sending it back to a committee here, even though we could refine it and make it, but it sounds like we can accomplish the same thing further along in the process up in the Planning Commission.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with the subcommittee route. That's fine with me. Okay. Simply, I mean, we can talk to them then about our intent. It was always my expectation that what I put together in a week was probably going to be subject to educated revision by the Planning Commission. So there's no pride of authorship, and I'll be happy to go to the meeting and give them other ideas as we move along. So I would move we just send the document that came out of. Oh, well, they've already got a motion, don't we? So.
Just, yeah, one other quick clarification for the record. There's been a large number of people in the neighborhood that have raised the concern of the usage for the West Homewood District regarding residential, allowing VRBO or Airbnb. Officially, I think if there's a way to make sure that that is not allowed in what we're sending forward, that would appease many of the residents, but.
Don't we already have an ordinance?
Well, the Homewood ordinance does not explicitly forbid condos, apartments. It's only for single-family residences, is my understanding from 2016.
Are there any condos or apartments in the West Homewood?
There's about to be.
Well, it's about to be 6, and it would still allow.
And we were still talking about mixed use with commercial and residential on top.
Structural design, I'm sorry.
I think townhouses are considered single-family residences, are they?
Well, no, can I address that?
Mr. Hickman.
And this is something I've talked with great length with Mr. Pugh about when this all came up. So the description and the definition for townhouse that was in the West Homewood District previously, I would say would be, trying to say this in a way that makes sense, it was a construction distinction, not an ownership distinction. So these are going to be condos in the traditional sense of a condo, in that there will be shared elements that are owned by all 6 parties, et cetera, so on and so forth.
They're not on separate lots.
They're not on separate lots, for example. They're all on one lot. And so there'll be shared elements, and they will be, from a legal perspective, and now, I'm not an attorney, but just based on being in real estate for 13 years, from a legal perspective, it seems to me they're condos, because they're going to have one lot, shared elements, and the developer said they're going to be condos, so they're going to look like townhouses, but that, that doesn't, what it looks like doesn't have anything to do with what it is, if that makes sense.
Well,
I could build a single-family house that looks like 3 townhomes, but it could be one house on the inside. So, I mean, the townhouse was a distinction of construction type, not ownership, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Wouldn't that be an adjustment to the existing ordinance? That wouldn't have anything to do with this actual ordinance. This is something totally different in the zoning book. That would be something that we would need to adjust in the existing ordinance.
I agree with you. I was just explaining the
You made sense. That
All
made
right, I think what we're
100%
doing
sense.
right now, guys, so then what we're doing, we're sending recommendations, okay? We can't send any binding, controlling, and so I think all that well-received, language and restrictions, well, we're sending recommendations, and so what I think we need to figure out is if we're going to send up, we're going to work on this up there, or we're going to work on this back in our committee. I think the general consensus I'm viewing here is to send it up to Planning Commission and work it up there, and certainly work on those issues that we want to do to limit it or restrict it in whatever additional manner. All right, so I will entertain a motion to, well, I guess we have a motion from P&D already. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Wolverton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we will send the document we have to date to P&D, and we will work on it with P&D until we get it back. Mr. Kendrick.
What I have is what Mike proposed to the council last week, plus Vicki has given some comments, plus Mike's additional email today. I'd include all that in the packet.
All right, and I was going to ask, does anybody have any objections to all of that? Going to...
Would it be possible to also hand off to Mr. Kendrick some of the residents' emails, including some that are on boards within the city?
Melanie can forward that to Planning Commission, whatever you like.
Yeah, you can do that. You forward that to Melody, she'll forward it to the Planning Commission. All right, anything further on this item? All right, so it stands approved, heading to Planning Commission, we'll go from there. All right, next item is 250417, which is a request for consideration of 18th Street Revitalization Project, coming to us from Britt Thames, and we get a report from Finance on this.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The committee voted 4-0 to recommend approval pending obtaining additional information on timing. So 4-0 out of Finance.
All right, further discussion on this, further information on timing. Do we need further information on timing before we consider this?
Well, I apologize. I was I was out of town
Okay,
last
Mr.
week,
James.
didn't make the committee, but it's my understanding that this is basically just committing us to the entire project. So none of these additional funds would be expended until subsequent budget years.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on this? We have a motion of approval from Finance. I'll entertain a second. Second by Mrs. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that's Resolution 1995. Stands as approved. Next item, 260419, which is a bid opening that was held on June 3rd for fuel tank at station number 3 by Chief President and the Fire Department, and we have a report from Finance on this.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The committee voted 4-0 to recommend rejecting all bids and having Chief President negotiate with the sole bidder. So 4-0 out of Finance.
Okay, and information I have is that that negotiation perhaps may be going on and that ultimately we may need a new bid, as I understand. But I don't think it changes the report from Finance or consideration of it. So this is a approval out of Finance for negotiating, further negotiation on this bid for the fuel tank at Station 3. Have approval from Finance. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, no resolution on that one, Mike?
Well, sir,
All right.
if you reject the bid, it's fine. I talked to the chief, and he told me he was just gonna reject the bids on Friday. I didn't know about negotiations, but he certainly can negotiate that.
Right.
If he comes back and negotiate a price, then we'd have to have a resolution to authorize the agreement.
Okay. All right. Next item, 270519, which is a request for the city to declare surplus an alley between 2600 and 2630 18th Street South from Eddie Cleveland and Greg Cobb with BEZ. And we get a report from Finance on this as well.
All right.
2705.
For this, we got a report from Mr. Cobb, and it was voted 0-4 for approval. So,
Okay, so we have a motion failing out of Finance Committee 0-4. And so I think what I have to do, Mike, and you correct me, is I have to consider if anyone else wants to offer a motion on this item. If not, it will fail for non-action.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so I'll entertain if anyone wants to provide a motion for approval of the request to declare surplus the alley between 2600 and 2630 18th Street South. Seeing no such action, 270519 will fail. Next item, 020619, request to authorize the mayor to sign the Historic Commission grant application for Union Baptist Church in Rosedale from Councilor Barry Smith, and we get a report from Special Issues Councilor Barry Smith.
Yes, we heard a presentation from Susan Zuber, who's the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission last week, and supplied the working document to Mike in anticipation of having the mayor sign that tonight. But turns out that there was some last-minute language that came up that threw a little kink in things, and apparently the grant person at the Alabama Historic Commission is no longer there. So I'm going to ask that we carry this over so that they can get some things clarified before we have the mayor sign that.
Okay, no objection, we'll carry over.
Thank you.
020619. Next item, 030619, request for consideration for Alabama Power to remove 4 street lights and poles at the corner of 18th Street and 28th Avenue for the new Valley Hotel project, from Randy Hamley with the Traffic Department and others with Robbins and Morton, and we get a report from Public Safety.
Yes, sir. The committee met and voted 3-0 to recommend approval. The motion was made by Councilor Wolverton and seconded by Councilor Andrus.
All right, any further discussion on this? I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCluskey. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's going to be Resolution 1996. Stands approved. Next item, 040619, which is a request to address traffic concerns on Brookwood Boulevard and potential crosswalk at Alabama Allergy. This came to us from Councilor Jennifer Andrus, and we get a report from Public Safety on this one as well.
Yes, sir. The committee met, and after hearing from Randy Hambley and Berkeley Squires, voted 0-3 to recommend approval. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Wolverton. The motion failed.
Gotcha. So it did fail, and so here we are again with a report from Public Safety that motion failed for approval. And just like the other one, I will open and entertain a motion if anyone wants to move for approval on this. Seeing none, then item 040619 will also fail. Next item, 0619, request to consider adding a stop sign at the intersection of Roseland Drive and West Linwood from Mayor Scott McBrayer and Josh Young. And on this one, we also get a report from Public Safety.
Yes, sir. The committee met, and after hearing from Randy Hambley, voted 0-3 to recommend approval. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Wolverton. The motion failed.
I wish I had picked a different week.
I think the Public Safety Committee is where you send things to die.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, and it did. So,
the Grim Reaper.
let me just.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Well, just one thing. Thanks to Public Safety for considering it. In talking with Josh, I think he knew there was a pretty good chance it probably wasn't going to pass because of some other things in the area, but just what a nice resident, and just wanted to say thanks for looking at it. There's a lot of kids on the street over there, and we'll circle back around at some point and see what else can be done over there. But thanks to the committee for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and so I'll formally do it. I'll entertain a motion for approval by anyone. Seeing none, and 060619 will also fail. All right, next item, 070619, request to authorize the mayor to sign a one-year contract with radio provider Tango Tango to add a push-to-talk police radio to their cell phone. This coming to us from Corporal John Self with our police department, and we get a report from finance.
All right. The committee met, voted 4-0 to recommend approval of this item with Tango Tango.
All right, we have a favorable report and approval of a motion out of finance. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
By Mr. Hickenbotham. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that's going to be resolution. I lost my number here.
1997.
Thank you, 1997. Stands approved. Next item, 090619, request for consideration to surplus a Parks and Recreation 2006 Ford 500. I will not read the VIN number, coming to us from Berkeley Squires, Public Works Director, and we get a report from Finance on this surplus item.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The committee met, voted 4-0 to recommend approval of this item.
All right, it's a favorable report from Finance, and Mike, I think we're ready for the first reading.
Yes, there's an ordinance to declare certain personal property and equipment as surplus. It's hereby established and declare that the following described personal property of the city Park and Recreation Board is no longer needed for public or municipal purposes, and therefore declared surplus. 2006 Ford 500, last four of the VIN 7706. Section 2, the mayor shall be authorized to dispose of the property by auction to the highest bidder.
Thank you, Michael. Entertain a motion for unanimous consent by Mr. Hickenbotham.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Andrus. And roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
By
Second.
Mr. Gwaltney, second by Mrs. Smith. Another roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes, and so we have a 10-0 vote for, I think it's ordinance 2750. Do I have that right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And next item, 10-0619, request for consideration to contribute to the bicentennial fireworks display on July 4th this year from Mayor McBrayer and our Chief of Staff, JJ. Report from Finance.
Yes, sir. The committee met, voted 4-0 to recommend approval of this item.
All right, we have favorable vote out of Finance. I'll entertain a second. Second by...
This also has a budget transfer included.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Was this budget, is this a budgeted item?
No, it was not.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The transfer is for $5,000.
$5,000.
Gotcha, all right.
That's right.
All right, so I got a motion for approval out of Finance and a second. I think it was by Mr. Tames. Oh,
I was coughing, but I will second it.
okay, well, we've designated you with a second, so congratulations. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's going to be Resolution 1998. That stands approved. Moving along, next item, 110619, request to consider lot size requirements for our parking pads. This coming from Councilor Jennifer Andrus and resident Betsy McGuire, and we get a report from P&D on this item.
Yes, sir. The committee met and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of amending of moving the minimum up to 75 feet to have 2 driveway entrances.
It's up to 75 feet from 60 feet?
From
right?
60.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and we,
Right.
yes.
Mr. Kendrick, would that change need to go to the planning commission? Or is it minimal?
No, let me look at that. It is a zoning ordinance amendment. It's also in the subdivision regulations.
I think it does.
I'm sorry, it is not in the zoning ordinance. It's a standalone ordinance. No, it doesn't need to be. It's in the subdivision regulations, which the planning commission adopts. They'll have to amend theirs.
All right, so I think we got a first reading on this, Mike?
Yes, it's an ordinance to amend subsection D entitled "The maximum of entrances for each site shall be limited on the basis of the curved frontage for properties" of section 18-9 entitled "Driveway Access to Streets" of Article 1 entitled "In General" of Chapter 18 entitled "Streets and Sidewalks" of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Homewood. Be it ordained that subsection D is amended to provide that curb frontage width of less than 75 feet, less than or equal to 75 feet would permit one entrance, greater than 75 feet, up to 150 feet with 202 entrances, et cetera. Nothing else changed. The only change was the entrance for the minimum of 75 feet. Section 2, that all of the provisions of the driveway access ordinances remains in full force and effect. Section 4, the ordinance become effective immediately upon its adoption by the City Council.
Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion for unanimous consent on this ordinance by Mr. Hickenbotham, second by Mr. Thames. Roll call vote, Ms. Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes. And now, motion for approval
So moved.
by Ms. Andrus, second by Mr. Wyatt. Another roll call vote, Melody.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andress?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright?
Yes, and so that's ordinance 2751 stands as approved. All right, moving on to our amended committee referral agenda. I will entertain a motion for approval of the committee referral agenda as amended
So moved. Second.
by Mr. Hickenbotham, second by Mrs. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that referral agenda is approved. Other new business, 320619, request to set a public hearing for consideration of a variance to the signed ordinance at 109 Wildwood Parkway, coming from Greg Cobb and the BEZ. We're going to set a public hearing for that for July 8th. Next item, 330619, request for consideration of an ABC restaurant retail liquor license for RSC Homewood LLC, doing business as Ruby Sunshine Cafe, located at 1017 Oxmoor Road, Suite 101. And we have approval from police, but we don't have approval from fire yet. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, Mr. McCluskey?
Well, I will move as to having no objection to the issuance of the license based off of the, when fire gets done, pending, thank you, pending's the word, pending fire's approval.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval pending fire department approving its part of the inspection as well. Second by Mr. Thames. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that stands as approved for Ruby Sunshine. I can't wait to open. 340619, request for consideration of ABC Restaurant Retail Liquor License for SK88 LLC, doing business as the Seafood King, located at 180 State Farm Parkway, coming to us from our city clerk, Melody. And I think we have the same situation here. We have police approval, but we do not have the fire inspection approval on this item.
Yes, well, I'll move to having no objection to the issuance of the license pending fire.
All right, same motion for Mr. McCluskey, second by Mr. Wolverton. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that stands approved as well. Next item, 350619, request to authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the Homewood Public Library Computer Lab Edition, coming to us from Debbie Fout, our library director. And I don't know, Mayor or Debbie, I don't know who wants to speak to this to let us know what this one is about.
We're so excited. But we finally got our bid opening done on the 13th, and Bennett Building got the contract, and it was for $1,164,656. And we met with Davis Architects and the builders last Thursday, and we've got the contract in order. Mr. Kendrick has looked it over, and so we're ready to have the mayor sign it, hopefully tonight.
Wonderful. And was this within budget?
Uh-huh.
Was it within budget? Great. Okay. All right. Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion for approval by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Hickenbotham. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
All right.
you.
Bid stands approved. Good luck, Debbie. Can't wait. Thank you. Last item tonight, 360619, request for consideration of approval of the vouchers of June 11th, 2019 through June 12th, 2019. Is it Britt?
It was me. I think it was my last time.
Oh, I thought there was a little giddy up in your step today.
He can lock them for July.
Yeah, he's next. You can keep doing it if you're really. No. One large late ad, which was most likely the final invoices for the West Homewood Parks, which is great. But everything is in order. I would recommend approval.
Second.
Great, we have a motion for approval from Mr. Thames, second by Mr. Hickenbotham. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so vouchers approved through June 24. All right, that gets us into our agenda and off to the mayor and comments. Mr. Mayor?
Nothing tonight. Do we need to have like a public contract signing?
A celebration, I think. Yeah. Or a party, yeah. All right. Yeah, at the end, I'm sure we will. All right, Mr. Gwaltney.
Just two simple things. Congratulations to Ms. Fout for working through all of this and getting the contract signed, and looking forward to what the library is going to do with their new addition. I just wanted to keep the council in the loop about the developments on 18th Street. Britt and I had a meeting with the Rosedale community last week on Thursday, and the developers, and had a good dialogue. The developers are going to go back to the drawing board and try to address some concerns, primarily centered around height of the structure, and then probably end up carrying it over at the July Planning Commission meeting, hopefully making the August Planning Commission meeting. And lastly, Just a reminder that Thursday, we have a work session with the RPC and Planning Commission for the downtown code, and there's also 2 public input sessions, 12 to 1 and then 5:30 to 6:30.
Can I ask you a question about those 2 public input sessions, because I can only attend one? Are they covering the same thing?
Mhm. Yeah.
They
Exactly.
are, so it is,
Yep.
okay. That was the purpose.
So this
of it.
is
That's what I
draft
thought.
2 of the downtown code and the first draft of the downtown, or the citywide signage ordinance.
Gotcha. All right, thank you, Mr. Gwaltney. Mr. Thames?
Mr. Jones, how much time will you need for finance?
45 minutes.
All right, I will set P and D for 5:45. Mr. White, do you think we'll need much time for your agenda item, or will we discuss it?
Yes, we will need some time.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, for 30 minutes. And just, I missed it. I missed a special night. It looked like all those failures in public safety. But just kind of on that topic, the one about the stop signs. Yeah, really, the stop sign caught my eye. Councilman Gwaltney and I met with Clark from Volker Friday and got a first look at our traffic calming document he's putting together. And I think it's really going to help address some agenda items like that. It's going to give us a process that'll hopefully streamline it, and it will also provide us with some preset options for those types of situations, take a lot of conjecture out of it, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Thames. Mr. Hickenbottom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the only thing I would do is echo Councilor Gwaltney's comments to Ms. Fout. I'm very excited about the library. I've sat on both sides of this dais with that project as a library board member and now as a council member, and so I'm really excited to have it happen. And you probably couldn't hear me say it up here, Debbie, when it came around. I said, rather than saying aye, I felt like saying amen when it came up. So I'm excited for you guys, and I know you're going to do some great things over there. But other than that, I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And Andrew Wolverton?
Yeah, I'd actually like to send a shout out to the libraries for a different reason. Busy all day at work, and usually for whatever reason, if I get a chance to get on social media at night, for whatever reason, the Facebook account pops up with some of their funny memes and things. So if you guys don't get those, you should definitely sign up, because you'll get a good chuckle every day. They've got some good ones out there. So, and then I'd just like to recognize my son, who turned 4 on Father's Day last weekend. He got his shots today to prove it. He's been walking around like a maimed animal. And then he went to the dentist after that, so he had a great day. That's right. And then my wife, who had her birthday the next day, so they're back to back. So.
What'd you do to her?
No doctors or dentist visits for her.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wolverton. Mr. McCluskey?
So, Brett, 6:15 for public safety?
Yes.
Did you say you needed 30?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do public safety at 6:15, and I think Mr. White's got mine. But I think there's only one item that is on referral, and that may be the only one that's left, because, as Mr. Thames said, everything failed while we weren't there. So you guys were proficient. I like it. So it should just be the one. Okay, we'll do 15 minutes for public safety, and that'll be it.
Thank you, Mr. McCluskey. Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. Finance will be at 5, and I actually have a funny library story. My 18-year-old is working at the park with the summer camp and everything, and they thought it would be a great idea to bring their 40 children down to the library. You have wonderful programs, so they were playing bingo. And then he realized when they started playing bingo that none of the 5-year-olds that he brought could read. So they proceeded to try to play bingo without these children knowing how to read. So everybody was yelling bingo at the same time, and they were really not winning bingo. But it was a great story. Wonderful programs. Maybe we can do something for the children that can't read yet. So anyway, that's all I have. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And Mrs. Smith?
I will set special issues for 6:30. I'm actually not going to be here, and I've already asked Ms. Andrus to chair that meeting for me. And there's only a couple of items on referral, but then there's some existing items, I know one of which for sure is going to be coming back. So I don't really want to say 30 minutes, but just to be safe, I'm going to say 30 minutes. Sorry, Peter. And then I also will not be here on the first four, well, I said that. I won't be here for the 8th either. And I won't be here for the the follow-up meeting on Thursday because my son and I are flying to Chicago for him to play soccer, which is what we do. And I'd like to announce that the Homewood Historic Preservation Commission is sponsoring a forum tomorrow night with Ben Wiseman from Rev Birmingham. He's going to be talking about rehabilitating and revitalizing communities, and that is from 6:30 to 7:30 at the public library. Thank you very much, in room 102. And they're really trying very hard to put these forums together that might be of interest to people, so that might be something y'all want to check out. And I want to give a shout out to Scott Cook. He's not here. Randy Hambley also not here. But I was out walking in the morning last week, and there were guys working on the creek walls on Roseland, fixing them. And there was Randy with his entire crew restriping the entire intersection at Kenilworth and Roseland, which desperately needed it. And then today, Scott Cook went to a house that I'd had a call about and rescued a turkey vulture. And I'll show y'all the picture of him holding this crazy-looking turkey vulture. And he took it to the Oak Mountain Raptor Rescue Center. So he solved two problems. He helped these neighbors and rescued a bird. So shout out to our wonderful employees. No, he said he was keeping the pictures that I sent him for documentation for the file. Yeah, so that's it.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Smith. And Mr. Wyatt?
Just like to thank Berkeley Squires and his team with all the trees that came down, including all the ones that fortunately did not come on my house or on my cars, but hit like all my neighbors' houses. They were out there early in the morning and got the streets cleared amazingly quick. So we all appreciate them getting out and doing that.
And Mrs. Andrus?
I had Berkeley on my list too because they were out on the Lakeshore Trail this morning. First thing, there was a big tree that was down blocking, and also last week the road to the high school was covered up, and so I want to thank Berkeley for his responsiveness there. It's been almost 2 weeks, but we haven't had a council meeting. Ms. Smith, Mr. Thames, and I got to ride on the Magic City Connector. So we met Councilor Darrell O'Quinn and Corey Petway from his office down at Birmingham City Hall and paid 25 cents, which I had to borrow from Councilor O'Quinn. But only 25 cents, and rode up 20th Street. And actually, we went to Uptown on the way back. You didn't get to go to Uptown, right? Okay, so we rode up 20th, and Meredith Drennan was waiting for us at Soho and took our picture, and then we had to pay 25 cents to get back on, which I had to borrow again. But anyway, it is 25 cents to ride. There's an app you can download. You can watch the buses as they progress. They're 15 minutes apart. There are 4 buses right now. This is a great success that we know it will be. They will be adding a 5th bus. And so it's just really a great route to add for us, and I really recommend any students headed to UAB or UAB students coming over here to eat to jump on that bus. It's a great asset for our community. Speaking of Mr. Thames and Mrs. Smith, I'd like to say belated birthday to Mrs. Smith and early birthday to Mr. Thames. And that's it.
Wonderful. And Mr. Wolverton?
Yeah, I did forget to thank Berkeley for cleaning up, sending crews to clean up some stuff in our neighborhood as well. And then there was one other thing that I forgot that jumped out at me on the drive over here tonight, which is that some of the new striping has begun on Oxmoor, and it looks great. And hopefully, this company that we've found is a keeper and can continue to help us with some of our striping woes. It's definitely, and hopefully, it'll help decrease the number of calls that our police get for people bumping into each other and that sort of thing. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just 2 comments. One, just to say something again, I think I said last council meeting, boy, what good news from the Birmingham Transit Authority. Let's say something good about the Birmingham Transit Authority, and they're very excited about what's happening with our Magic City Connector, and more excited about the work that's taking place and some good communication taking place. So hats off to them for what they're doing. It really is, it's noticeable. Also, I also want to take hats off to my two Ward 2 council mates who have really worked overtime on this West Homewood District Code. And I'm glad we got a vehicle, even if it's a work in progress. You guys have worked hard to give us something to get up there and to start working on this in Planning Commission. And I know it's taken a lot of y'all's time, and I just wanted to commend you all for that. I know the feeling when those issues come upon your ward. So, and lastly, I don't think I'm going to set Public Works, not because I just don't want to set it, but I'm going to wait to hear if we get approval from Montgomery on our stormwater and Amy before I set it. If we do set it, we'll announce it by email, but I think it's so tentative, and I've been pushed to a bloody 7 o'clock now. So, so I'll let you guys know if we're going to have a stormwater discussion at 7 o'clock or not. And but for now, we're going to keep it off the agenda. And for that, we are adjourned. Thank you.